Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thotgor here, of course, and today we are going to take a look at a battle in the Cleveland. Yes, you can see that we are grouped up with Rommel. Yeah, Rommel. And he is in his Bayern. Like I had mentioned in the last video, I had been drawn back into ships, a lot to do with the new PvE content that has taken place in the game, or that has been added to the game, but as well as these British battleship missions and the Yamamoto missions. There we are. Those are also quite fun to get done, and as well, you know, get the super containers at the end. But anyway, that's essentially what Rommel and I are doing. Rommel is working on his British battleship missions. I think at this point I'm already done that mission, or the last mission anyway, for when the British battleships come out, which is something that I'm very excited for as well. But anyway, that's essentially what we're doing in the Cleveland on fault line. Figure this is classic. I'm going to A. I'm going over here to the west side of the map. That's what I tell Rommel, and he's just like, "What are you talking about?" Because he wanted to focus, you know, BC, and I was like, "No, the classic historic thing happening here. I mean, this is one of the original maps to the game, and you know, it always happens over there at A, and that's where I wanted to go." Now, I chose the Cleveland today because I haven't sailed her in a long time. I had heard rumors. I never really checked into them and you know, validated those rumors as to whether or not the Cleveland had been buffed and is, you know, better now. It'll never... For anyone who played back in closed beta, the Cleveland will never be the powerhouse that it was back then, but nowadays it is still pretty good. You know, I have a pretty good game here in the Cleveland. So some of the things I have to get used to in the Cleveland is the firing arc. Obviously the firing arc. The American firing arc is just crazy. Now, good and bad, right? I mean, there are those who really don't like it, and there's others who don't have a problem with it, and it's, I mean, they'll still say that it's you know, a really high firing arc. They probably won't say it's a bad firing arc, but it's still a pretty high firing arc. But once you get used to it, it's actually, you know, quite effective, because you can start firing over mountains and land masses very easily because of the high firing arc. So it's interesting, and I mean, if you're playing British cruisers at all, then you know, you'll run into a similar situation as with the American ships, just with the long, the high firing arc with the long hang time of the shells. It really takes a bit of getting used to. So you can see first shots are going out, and I am doing exactly that, getting used to the firing arc, realizing that I have to lead the target a whole lot more than I'm necessarily used to. Now, some other, this isn't new, it was added to the game before I took my, break from the game, I guess, is the dynamic firing crosshairs. I'm not a big fan of them, and it's probably just because I'm so used to the default ones that I just don't want to make the switch. I've actually tried it out when the French cruisers first came out. I was you know, playing with ships a little, wasn't doing any recording, but just playing with ships a little, and decided to try out the dynamic crosshairs, and yeah, it just wasn't working for me. I wasn't used to it, and it was going to take time to get used to it. I was like, screw it, I'll just do the default, and that's the one that I'm going to stick with. Anyway, we finally made our way over here to A, and we're going to start, you know, getting closer in to be able to pout the enemies, because that's another thing. It seems to me, anyway, maybe I'm wrong, but another thing that has changed with the Cleveland is the firing range of the Cleveland is quite short now, about 14-something kilometers. I always thought that it was more than that. I seem to remember 16 kilometers, but maybe that, again, maybe it has been changed, or maybe I'm just wrong, right? That's very possible. I'm wrong often enough. Anyway, we can see we put some shots off into the Omaha back there, and I'm charging forward. I'm getting right into the fight here. I wanted to test out the Cleveland. I wanted to see, in terms of armor, what the armor could do. The gun power of the Cleveland it's still great. If you can land those shells, you're going to do pretty decent damage. Now, I do have the inertia fuse on this captain for the captain skills, and I think that is something that has been discussed when that skill came out way back when, you know. If your guns are like 155s or below, then yes, go ahead and put it on. If they're above that caliber, then you probably don't want to, because it's just going to take away from your fire chance and the damage that you could be doing with the higher HE values and the higher caliber guns. At least that's what I think. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. These are things that I would like to know. But anyway, Omaha there off in the distance, so we'll put a few shots out. You can see I am using the island as cover at this point in time, and I'm still trying to work my way into the cap zone. Now, we do have an enemy destroyer here that pops up, so obviously I got to start targeting the destroyer right away, see what I can do about getting this player gone. Now, I do need to keep in mind as well that behind me I have Rommel and I have several allies as well, but more importantly Rommel, right? And I wanted to try and clear the way for Rommel so that he can come up here with his Bayern and start dishing out the damage with that Bayern, because the Bayern is one hell of a battleship at tier 6. I mean, sure, she struggles to hit the side of a barn, but when she does hit, oh man, it is pretty spectacular. The Omaha is still there off in the distance, not being too big of a pest at this point in time, but it was just, something to shoot at. Whenever I have something to shoot at, I'm going to take the shots, unless, I'm spotted and it's going to be really bad. Managed to dodge those torpedoes, which is pretty great. We can see the enemy destroyer still over there trying to get away. I'm into the smoke now, so I lose sight of the enemy destroyer, and now I've got this enemy Nagato here off on my side, and I was a little concerned. Now, luckily, I do have the smoke to cover me in this turn, right? Obviously, I'm concerned because I don't want the Nagato to pump his armor piercing into the side of me and just destroy me, although it would have been a good test of the armor. Assuming RNG Jesus, or RNGesus, I guess is what it's called, is with you. Yeah, it might not work out. But anyway, we are in the smoke, and the smoke was able to cover my turn. You can see I'm now out of the smoke, and I don't have my broadside exposed anymore, so that's pretty great. Unfortunately, I'm going to get myself out of the cap because of the turn, but I'm just going to need to continue the turn and get myself back into the cap if it is advantageous to do so. I really do love the priority target captain ability. I think that this is one of the best captain abilities. I mean, before it, obviously, it was, I forget what it was, but it was the ability that told you whether or not you had been spotted. Maybe it was high alert or something, I can't quite recall. But anyway, before, that skill just became standard for everyone on every ship. You got it regardless, because that is basically a required skill. Before that skill was something that you could choose from, and it being the most important. Now with these new set of commander skills, I think that this one at tier 1 is just so important to have. It just, it really gives you more ability to read the battle and to read the actions of your ship and what they should be, and how you should be able to avoid some of these enemy vessels. It is just really important, and I really do enjoy it. Anyway, we're firing in on the Nagato still. You can see the Nagato's running away. In the meantime, my team has come in and managed to secure the A zone, which is great. And bonus to all of this is we also have the B cap zone, which is just great, because I mean, I'm not, not gonna lie, maybe it's a little shameful, but I wasn't concerned at all with the B cap zone. I was, basically, in the Cleveland classic map, I'm just going to go to A, duke it out, whatever happens, happens. I wasn't really actually concerned about whether or not I was going to win the battle. Didn't really matter to me. And for Rommel is working on the ribbon, I think it's 500 ribbons for the British battleship mission. Working on that part there as well, so really, not concerned about killing enemy battleships or getting a victory. It's just how many shots can he get down range type stuff. So, yeah, I wasn't too concerned. Anyway, bonus on the cake. My team has B. So we have the cap advantage. We have the Nagato here off on the port side of the ship, and she is on pretty low health. So we are going to put some shots into the Nagato. We can see that we are being targeted, though, by some enemy vessels. So I do need to do some maneuvers here while I'm taking shots off at the Nagato. And it's pretty lucky in the sense that I've got this island here, right, in between myself, the Nagato, and that other enemy ship that's beyond the island. So I only really have to take shots, or worry from shots from the Nagato, who's now dead, so I don't need to worry about him. But these players over here at B, and I was quite concerned about these players, but you can see very lucky. These players are not concerned with me at all. And again, having the ability to know whether or not you're targeted tells you whether or not those ships that are super close to you are actually targeting you. Now, obviously, it doesn't tell you which ship specifically is targeting you, and it could be one off in the distance, but still, nonetheless, gives you that bit of information for you to interpret and take it as you will. So we're going to get ourselves, or try to get ourselves, into a better position here to fight these enemy vessels. We've got that enemy New York there off in the distance, and that player has just fired shots off at me, but at the time I didn't really see them. Was really focused on the New Mexico here instead. So you can see I do take a bit of damage, but it wasn't too bad. And whether or not this is attributed to, you know, an increased better armor layout on the Cleveland, or armor values, or, you know, if it's just was a lucky shot on the New York's behalf, or maybe it was just an unlucky shot on the New York's behalf, because maybe, you know, he could have pumped those in and killed me entirely. So not 100% sure if that's attributed to the Cleveland and its armor, but it was still an overall good result. It was lucky. It was lucky is essentially what it comes down to. Now, you can see that I've got Rommel here in front of me. Finally, we've got the Bayern ahead of us to absorb some of the damage and to dish out some shells. So Rommel's going to start pumping into the enemy New Mexico and the enemy New York that we have over here. Now, I'm looking at this situation, and I see the two enemy ships there off in the distance. But I'm looking as well at how many enemy ships are remaining on the enemy team, right? And I can see these two, but there's still quite a few remaining. And in fact, we can see some are starting to pop up in and around B. I'm not really looking to chase these battleships down. I'm going to head into B, actually. You can see I'm turning my ship now. I tell Rommel this as well. I said, look, you know, there's no need to chase down these battleships. I'm going to B. Rommel was, you know, pretty tunnel visioned in on these battleships, so he's still not willing to give them up just yet. But I figure, what the hell, you know, he'll be along shortly. I'm just going to start pushing into B. We can see the enemy's already starting to cap this point. I've got an ally over here, but the ally's almost dead. So I, you know, really do need to get into the point here and start capping it and seeing what we can do about this. And it is, you know, kind of at this point in the battle, and it happens in most battles that we play, where there's, you know, your initial push has gone pretty successfully, you seem to have the advantage, but now your team is fairly dispersed. You know, you take a look at the minimap, you can see that my team is fairly dispersed, and, you know, it's decision time for your team, and it's time for the team to come together and, you know, push home the advantage. And for us to do that, it's to take B. We can't just go off and chase these battleships, and so it's a struggle sometimes when you know, when you're playing ships and you see this time and you recognize that, hey, we got to do something to take advantage, but the team isn't necessarily willing to do it. It's not so great. Now, luckily in this instance, we don't have that situation. The team might have been slow to react, or at least in my opinion, slow to react. Probably, you know, other people would be like, oh no, what are you talking about, Thotgor? It was fine. But maybe a little slow to react, but we do react, and we do actually counterattack, because at this point in time, the enemy has the cap, right? They've got B. We have to get in here, and we have to do something. Now, we do have a bit of a lead in points. That is good, but we could still lose this lead in points, right? Even though the enemy has, even though, you know, we have the advantage in ships and all that lovely stuff, you just don't want to squander these things away, because it can change. Ships is, you know, ships. It's random, and if you were a developer, I guess you call it dynamic, fun, and engaging. But for us, we have, you know, other more colorful words to describe it. But anyway, it can change, so we don't want to squander the advantage that we have. So you can see my team has started to come together here on the mini-map, right? We're sort of grouping up. I'm still, well, myself and two allies, I guess, are kind of leading the charge into B at this point in time. I've got this enemy destroyer here that pops up. Can't let this go down. Now, one of my biggest gripes about the Cleveland and the American cruiser line in general is that there are no torpedoes. Even the Russians have torpedoes that go 4 kilometers, and I know, well, I guess I can't say even, it's probably it's surprising that the Russians have torpedoes that only go 4 kilometers. Is what I should say, considering the bias. But anyway, the Russians, you know, they have torpedoes. They only go 4 kilometers on the cruisers until you get to tier 9, or with the Kutsov. But even with those 4-kilometer torpedoes, they still come in handy, and I would still like to have them. I mean, even I know we're shooting Atlanta here, and the Atlanta has 5-kilometer torpedoes. So even if they could give us 5-kilometer torpedoes for the cruisers, that would be something. Because there are always situations that you can put yourself in where torpedoes become a really, really handy tool to have, and it's just something that you don't have on the American cruisers, and I miss it anyway. So here we go. We have the enemy destroyer pops up. I managed to dodge the torpedoes. He came in at me. It looked like the enemy destroyer was going in for the ram. More torpedoes coming in. We count 4. That is actually the torpedoes from the Atlanta. You can see those torpedoes were close in killing that enemy destroyer for me. But whatever, I get the kill on the destroyer. Fantastic. You can see my team is in the B cap zone. They're capping it, which is great. We were able to press our advantage and really secure the situation. Right now I'm moving into the cap zone. I know that I have an enemy ship over here somewhere, but I do have some cover, so hopefully I'll be able to make use of this cover. It is an enemy battleship though, so I'm going to target that spotter aircraft. We can see that the enemy Colorado has not targeted me, so I know that I have a bit of time here, you know, line up my guns, take my shots, hopefully light some fires, and as well angle my ship properly against the enemy Colorado, so that if the player does decide to target me and have you know, shots come in on me, I will be relatively safe. I mean, you know, there's always that chance where those shells will just come in and rake through your decks and destroy you. It has happened to me many a time. So the enemy Colorado moves in behind the island. I'm not going to be able to get any more shots in on the player. We still have 3 enemy ships remaining. Taking a look around, though, you can see that we pretty much have this in the bag at this point in time. You can see Rommel has now decided to come and join us in here in B, which is great. We can definitely use more firepower. We do have the enemy destroyer there off in the distance. I'm not going to chase this player down. No. No. You know, who was it? Napoleon. Napoleon said, you know, it was impolite to interrupt your enemy while they were making a mistake. And if those enemies want to be way off there in the distance, let them be back over there in the distance. And I know that I've mentioned this before, but it's always something to keep in mind in the heat of the battle like this. Don't interrupt your enemy when they make the mistake. Let them make the mistake. You take the advantage. It works out better. So we're in a bit of smoke there. Not that it really mattered. We don't have anything to hide from. We can see that we're taking a look at the at my allied Texas. I was wondering where the America camouflage was on the player, but I guess player just didn't take part in that event. We are still waiting for the enemy Colorado to come out from behind the island. We can see him there once again. So we'll try and get ourselves into a position where we can get some pretty close-in shots off, but turn away, because that's my plan here, is to sail straight at the enemy, then make a sharp turn to port, using the island to cover me on the starboard side from any shots that Colorado might attempt to put in me. That being said, this is also a perfect opportunity for torpedoes, but we all know how I feel on that. Anyway, enemy Colorado is going to start pushing beyond the island here now, so we'll get a few shots into the player as we can just before the battle ends. Hopefully we'll set a few fires. There's a fire, excellent. We'll rack up a bit more damage, and, you know, get some more secondary battery kills. And I was actually quite surprised earlier when my secondary battery managed to take out the Atlanta. I suppose the Atlanta was on really low health anyway, and it's just sheer luck, but whatever. It's pretty great. So we're turning now, hoping not to collide with the island. We see that I did manage to get a few hits into the enemy Colorado. We've got a fire that's burning, so I'm racking up a bit more damage. Sitting on about 94,000 or 93,000, I suppose. Battle is over. Victory is ours. So not a bad game at all in the Cleveland, and I do enjoy the Cleveland. I mean, when I'm playing with Rommel's highest tier is 7, so generally jumping between tier 6 or 5, 6, and 7. And at those tiers, yeah, I'll probably take out the Cleveland some more. But is it going to be something that I play on a regular basis? You know, if I'm just messing around on my own, probably not. But still, a solid cruiser at tier 6. I only played one battle in the ranked battle season that just passed, and that was just to get my flags, sort of like door prize. Bad Panda suggested it actually, so I took took that good advice. Anyway, I think that I don't even know what tier the season was at. Maybe at tier 6. So I'd imagine the Cleveland would have performed decently in ranked battles. But anyway. Do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to leave any comments you might have for me as well. And I am curious to know what you guys think about the new intro, whether or not we should keep the new intro, revert back to the old one. Let me know. Let me know any other comments you have as well. Of reading those, responding back to them. Hit the old like button if you did like today's video. Hit subscribe if you are not a subscriber. And as always, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.